Agenda, cold calling. We're going to be focusing on closing the call today. We're going to be talking about some pitfalls. We're going to be, of course, playing some real call examples. We're not going to sit here and tell you hypothetical stuff that, you can see on LinkedIn and you think, does this stuff work? Does this person who's saying this stuff actually use this stuff? We're actually going to play some real call examples. The proof is in the pudding. Optimizing LinkedIn profiles to help you sell. Creating content on LinkedIn and social to create conversations. And also Matt's going to be taking a little bit of a deeper dive into what he did a couple of weeks ago about finding great fit prospects using social. So let's get to it. Cold calling. So we're going to be talking about the start of the... we've talked about the very start of the cold call. The very first thing that you say when someone answers the phone. Last week, we then talked about the later stage of that, which is about what some people call the elevator pitch, but it's all about how you pitch yourself to prospects. Importantly, how you can switch that to leading with problems. But now it's about closing the call. So we're going to be focusing on that kind of latter section of the conversation. So before we get into that, I thought it'd be useful just to take a bit of a step back and actually think about what is the objective of making this cold call. So I want everybody in the chat to right now just post, in their opinion, what is the purpose of making the cold call? Just let us know, and we just want to see some of the responses come through before we I open this up to Stu. So let's see what we've got. We've got establish contact, get a real meeting, secure time to speak, open up a conversation, brand awareness, book an appointment, to try and book an appointment, to get more time, to get a next step, to make an appointment, to create agency, to sell something, to book a meeting. So quite a lot of responses there are geared around to book a meeting, to get that next step. Stu, in your opinion, what was the purpose of the cold call?
So if you'd have asked me at the start of my career in the early days as an SDR, I'd have agreed with the majority of the audience, and that was to book a meeting to get next steps, which seems to be the majority of the opinion. But I've changed recently. I think Blake was the only one who come back with a similar opinion to myself. And I think the purpose of a cold call is to figure out if the prospect has a challenge that you can solve, and then to schedule some time to discuss how you solve it. I think that's the change that I've made recently, and that's helped me massively. I think too many salespeople pick up the phone with the intention of booking the meeting by any means. What they're going to do, they're going to get that prospect on the phone, they're going to book a meeting, they're going to get some time in their calendar, and they're not going to put the phone down until they get it. And I think that's the wrong attitude. You're forcing people into the next steps when there isn't necessarily a good fit, which obviously increases the likelihood of them not turning up, because sometimes they'll agree to a next step just to get you off the phone. You come across as needy, desperate, and that's never a good thing from a salesperson. What you need to do is be honest with your prospects, pick up the phone with the intention of finding out if they've got a problem or a challenge that you can solve. If they can, great, get the next step scheduled. If you can't, thank them for the time and move on to somebody who you can help.
Mark, any differing opinions to add to that?
No, I'm with Stu. I think the bit of advice that I wished I'd learned a lot earlier in my career was to just not care about the outcome of the cold call. I think a lot of people pick up the phone and they're really just wanting to hear that, yes, let me open up my calendar. I think when you care about the outcome, it can guide you in all the wrong ways because you're thinking about you and what you want. So yeah, I think I just wish someone sat me down when I was younger and just said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. In sales, we're rewarded the same for putting on an initial appointment as we are putting on a crap one or a great one. It's all the same. We're all rewarded in the same way. When we don't ever reward someone for qualifying out, there's no fit there. This isn't going to be a good conversation. So I think my overall opinion is to see if there's a problem, see if it's a problem they actually want to solve pretty quickly, and then agreeing that you should find a suitable time to speak. But just don't care about the outcome is my message for everyone listening here.
I remember when I started off as an SDR and I was booking appointments for people, and I cared about the outcome. God, I cared about the outcome so much. So to the point where I felt like I was persuading people to meet with me. I was almost trying to convince them. If they weren't very sure, I'd say, oh, please just, like 20 minutes of your time, and, it might not be a good fit, but let's just take a look. And then I'd hear those magic words of saying, okay then, let me see what I've got on my calendar. And it was that kind of, oh, brilliant, big sigh of relief, big smile on my face, little party going on in my head, commission, I can add to my commission list. And the reality was, I think that kind of, I was so worried about getting that meeting that it probably didn't help me. It definitely didn't help the quality of meetings I booked. And it wasn't until, as Mark said, I stopped caring about whether this person wanted to meet with me or not, that I suddenly became a lot better at prospecting. It actually got to the stage where I was actually looking for prospects to almost argue and debate with me and to kind of qualify themselves in, and I was doing less of the convincing to take to put time aside. And when you do that, I think the prospects actually feed off that. They feed off that kind of the air of that this person isn't that desperate to meet with me, but there's an opportunity to talk. And I think once you start feeling that way, you also just get more confident cold calling too.
So, Rich, do you think that mindset? Because I feel like it has for me. I'm sure you would agree. Do you think that's changed when you're an SDR and you're putting on a meeting for somebody else? Literally, you book the meeting, wash the hands, as you say. It's instant recognition. You write it on the board or whatever. You get your commission money. Now you're doing the meetings. You're investing that time. Do you think that's changed your opinion, and that's why you don't care about the outcome as much?
In the chat as well, is that a fundamental problem with the way we comp SDR teams? And I guess that's pertinent because SDRs have a different target that they're accountable for, and I guess that speaks to that problem. With us actually holding the meetings, it's very different. SDRs might not necessarily have that opinion because they're trying to book the meeting.
If someone's been shoehorned into a meeting, the chances of them not showing up for that meeting have just been exponentially increased, in which case it was pointless booking that meeting in the first place. But I think any salesperson on this call, whether you book meetings for someone else, whether you book meetings for yourself over the phone, would you rather have 5 shoehorned meetings or one really good quality meeting where the person has expressed that they've got a challenge that they're interested in how you can help? I guarantee everyone would take option 2 over option 1 every single time.
From somebody who holds meetings, well, that wouldn't be true from an SDR necessarily.
I think
challenge, and that's what Wendy's speaking to, like the challenge that maybe SDR's comp plan is wrong typically in the industry, because they are, a lot of them, targeted on volume rather than quality. And if an SDR puts one meeting on and somebody puts 5, even if those 5 are shit and they never turn up, they still arguably look like they're doing more than the SDR who's only booked the one.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's a solution to that problem. But anyway, I want to move. I do want to move the conversation on, because we've got loads to talk about here. I want to just go into like how to close the cold call. And this is where we're going to start to play some real examples. I know people have been loving these real cold calls that we've been playing, because this isn't often what you get to hear when you see, sales experts posting stuff on LinkedIn, or you go to sales training and you've got someone delivering a PowerPoint presentation. It just lacks the reality. And so you sat there thinking, does this stuff actually work? What does this sound like? This is what we're trying to do on the webinars. And on that note, over to Mark to share some examples of how to close the cold call. Mark?
Yeah. Okay, so my time to shine and dig out some cool examples in Refract. So, yeah, I've spent a couple of hours going through some cool recordings, and a way to play these 2 in particular. So we got one of mine today, and we got one of Stuart's. So just going to unplug. So everyone hears it a little better. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so the first call, just to give a bit of context, this is an ideal customer profile for me. I'm speaking to a sales leader who has an inside sales team. They sell over the phone. I know he listens to their call recordings and he wants to improve their call outcomes. So I know it's an ICP. I called him on the 17th of January, and I'm telling you that for context because he pushes me back to March. So let me just play the first bit, and then we'll take from there.
To be honest, you probably make more progress with me. I know I'm putting you off a bit, but early March, because I'm going through a process at the moment that's keeping me incredibly busy on a very major tender. Yeah, okay. Sure. Okay, that, John. So make a note. Give me a bell early March. Yeah, I'll mention it to my sales manager. I've sent the link already. Yeah, okay, and then we see where we go. Okay, all right.
So just go start there. In that 20 seconds, I'm sure everyone's picked up on it. That was quite a tone where he's telling me that, put a note, call me back in a couple of months. I'm interested, but I'm really busy right now. He's telling me what's going to happen, and he's trying to take control off of me. But
I actually just try and phrase it in a certain way where I understand. I don't want to knock on a closed door, but I just rephrase it slightly because March isn't that far away, and just hear what I say and hear the outcome here.
All right, John, that all sounds good to me. What I would suggest is there's a good chance that this just doesn't happen again if we don't align calendars. Now, I appreciate things might change, but why don't we pencil that call in for March? If we need to move it around, we can, but it just means it's in the calendar and we get slipped off the radar. Is that something that we can do?
I wish my sales guy would do that. Go on then.
Go on then, John.
Yeah, so I think what I like what you've done there is that this guy has made it known to you that this is not, you are not the top 2 or 3 things on his priority list to give attention to right now, and that's absolutely fine. You probably, if you wanted to, Mark, could have shoehorned this guy into a meeting if he's expressed that he's got an element of interest in what you do. That wasn't the right thing to do. Instead, you said, tell you what, rather than us just there's an opportunity to talk more, but it's not now. It's not in 6 months' time. It's in a few weeks' time, and just kind of get that placeholder, not to set as a meeting, just so that serves as a mental reminder to him of a conversation to keep alive. And you can hear what he said afterwards is actually he actually appreciates that sales behavior too. It's something that in his words, the sales team don't do themselves. Maybe there is more of a pressing need for him to use Refract actually in hindsight, but through listen to that.
You're dead right though, Rich, and I think the big thing with that as well is now Mark has got that placeholder. He's got something in his calendar, he's in his mind, that'll pop up as a reminder. When he does come to contact him again, it's far easier than if he hadn't done that, because if you don't, everybody will have forgotten about you, you're starting fresh again, and the chances of you actually getting a meeting from that next call are slim to none if you haven't got a placeholder or something in the call.
I think the fact is it was only sort of 6 weeks out. And if this was 6 months away, I wouldn't have bothered. But the fact is, we're not too far away, as you all say. You just want to be in kind of front of mind, etc. But let's move on from that. Stu, you might remember this call. It's probably one of my favourite in terms of the calls of yours that I've listened to from a cold call perspective. You start with
Stu there.
You what? Sorry.
You just compliment Stu there.
Yeah, giving him a little one. But the reason is because this call, we all remember it, right? This is where he starts off by just talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Totally great pattern interrupt, totally got his attention. You speak for a good 5 minutes, and then Stu just realises now's the time to wrap this up. So just play this bit here.
Now, I know I've called you out of the blue, and you've probably got 1,000,001 things to do, given you're brand new there and you're growing the team. But could we schedule some time when we can maybe dive a little bit deeper and we can explore if this is potentially a good fit or not?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably squeeze in half hour, 45 minutes to at least look at it.
Yeah, I think what I really liked about what Stu did there is he started off by saying, I know you've got 1,000,001 things to do right now. He's kind of automatically lowering the resistance of the prospect. In sales, we should always be lowering resistance. And by just dropping that in of like, I know that you've got 1,001 things to do, he's acknowledging that, we are not the most important thing in this guy's life right now. And he's acknowledging that. But he's then coupling that with saying, would it make sense for us to talk again? And crucially, he says to explore to see if there's a fit or not. Again, Stu isn't saying, "Oh, I want to book a meeting with you to sell you something for you to make the biggest decision of your life at the end of that meeting," because that could increase his resistance. He's saying actually that next conversation for us, that meeting, is to see, we'll dive a bit deeper and see if there's a fit or not. And just using those 2 words, or not, it just makes the prospect feel that one outcome of that call could easily be that this isn't a fit, and it's perfectly fine. And it's amazing when you position things in that way, where you give prospects a little bit of an out, they're so much more committed to wanting to speak with you, rather than feeling, oh dear, this next meeting Stuart's commit me to. At the end of that call, he's going to, he's going to ask me to sign an order form, give me his credit card details. And it's amazing that when you just position things in that way, it just feels much more light touch, and we'll just get more prospects warmed to continuing the conversation if there is a good fit.
You've got to have that honesty and integrity though as well, Rich, and I think that goes back to what we said. And if there isn't a good fit, then tell them. Be honest and use that. Just say, look, and thank them for the time, and just say, I don't think this is for you. You seem to have everything aligned perfectly. It's working well for you. We're not a fit for you. And that will be the case. Not everybody is going to be a perfect buyer for your product, and you need to find that out. But like you said, rightly, giving the customer that out is really, really powerful. Often the more we try to qualify people out, sometimes prospects actually fight back and qualify themselves back in and give you something new you weren't aware of. It's amazing how often that happens, and it's a really powerful tip.
So in terms of closing the call off, like we've played some examples there, but what I want to know, Stu, is when do you think you should actually do that? When should you, on a cold call, when do you close it? When do you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this one that we just listened to was probably an exception to most of my cold calls, because I'm 4 minutes in or so before I've gone for the close. And that's quite a long time for me. I'm quite a big fan of going for the close at the earliest opportunity. When you've established that there is a fit that you can help with, that's your opportunity to close that call. Whenever that happens in the call, the sooner the better. But there's a reason for that as well. And there's a common mistake that salespeople make. A lot of salespeople will go for the close, get the meeting set, and virtually high five the colleagues, celebrate, put that name on the board, and start counting the commission, which is fine. But they'll then try and get the prospect off the phone as quick as possible, as if their job's done and that's the end of their conversation. When the opposite is true, when you've set a meeting, after the meeting's set, the pressure's off. You've got the perfect opportunity to ask more questions. You can frame it with something like, in order to make the most use of your time, when we speak tomorrow, what I'd like to do is ask you a few questions so we can make that as valuable as possible. And then you've almost got free rein. Ask anything you want. You can ask that prospect anything, and you can get some more information, build up a little bit more rapport. I'm not the biggest fan of that word rapport, but you can build up that conversation, get to know that prospect better, get a little bit more information, which is useful for you. And it also, decreases the chance that prospect's going to no-show for the next step, because you've spent more time with them, you've got more information, and you started to...
So many salespeople, they book the meeting, they confirm, okay, next Tuesday, 10 a.m., and they can't wait to put the phone down, because they're like, oh, I've got it booked, I've got the commitment, I just want to hang up and not lose it. When in fact, you've done the hard bit. As soon as someone's committed that time to you, you've got the opportunity to ask 2 more questions. And how much better would that next meeting be? How much more chance will you have of that prospect showing up at that next meeting just by asking 2 more thought-provoking questions? Or even just
nobody's ever going to say it. Nobody's ever going to say, oh, actually, Rich, I've changed my mind. I don't want to meet with you tomorrow because of the question you've asked. There's no danger.
But if they did, fine, because they're trying to qualify them. Let me play another example here. So this is a call where I've done just that. This is, again, a cold call. 1 minute in, we agree that there's interest here. I started the call as we shared in previous weeks. I've led with a couple of problems. I've asked them if that resonates. He said yes. So then I say, well, look, let's set up a time to talk.
Also profile what actually is working and share that across the team. Does that sound like something that could resonate with you, Bernie, and we could talk about another time?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sounds interesting.
So he said, yeah, sure, sounds interesting. We have verbally agreed that we're going to set up another call. What I could do now is go, right, let's go straight for the calendar, let's get it available. But he told me it sounds interesting. So the first thing I do is I ask that question.
Brilliant. What's interesting? What's the interesting part of that for you?
So ask a little bit more information. Bear in mind, we're 1 minute 15 in. You can see in Refract.ai, I actually ask 7 questions. And the first question occurs in the first minute. And then 6 more questions occur throughout this call. And I'll just play some more. So a minute later, I ask another question because I'm getting more information ahead of my next call.
Okay. That sounds really interesting. Just to make sure that we're super relevant when we do speak next, the team today, do they sell predominantly over the phone?
To make sure it's super relevant for when we speak next, preloading it with a question. I ask another one here.
I understand. And the calls that they're having, are they recorded?
And then finally, I'm not done. I ask another question.
What is the size of your sales team across the 2 offices out of interest?
So what I've done there, well, rather than me tell, I'm keen to get your thoughts, boys.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you're really kind of going in quite deep here. I think there's definitely a gentle balance here between turning this call into a discovery call, when again the objective of the call is just to find out if there's a fit. And just to find out this person's got a problem. Is there merit in us talking again, basically? But ultimately, what you're showing here is you've got a person who's committed to talking to you, but you're just using that additional time, using that commitment to actually drive more interest in this guy. Like this guy is probably getting more intrigued than he was 2 minutes ago, and that's only going to ever help your opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe I did ask maybe one or two questions more than what I needed to. But let me bring this to life with an analogy that got recently shared with me, and then I think we can move on. I think we can box this off. But there's a gentleman called Matthew that I'm a big fan of, and he shared with me his sales strategy is called the by the way sal. And he says that when he's listening to his team's calls in Refract, what he's listening for is the by the way at the end. And he likened it to having this epiphany at WH Smith's. We've all been there. You're making your purchase, and they go, by the way, would you like a chocolate bar today? They're on special offer. And we've all, guilty as charged, taken advantage of that multiple times probably. And it's the same when you're at supermarkets, those treats by the aisle. It's the same when you're on Amazon, other things you can put into your basket. When the sale is done, it doesn't mean that you can't be tempted with additional extras. And here we're doing that with questions.
Yeah. Right, okay, so we're going to move on from closing the call to everybody's favourite part of the show. I know you can't wait for this, because I've seen so many of you have been saying, Richard, I can't wait for the part of your show, which is...
Objection of the Week.
That's right. It is Objection of the Week. And this week on...
Callum's back.
Objection of the Week.
We're going to be talking about an absolutely... It's the horrible stinker of an objection. We all get hit with it. The dreaded... I'm not interested. Bam! It's like a kipper to the face when you get hit with that one. Stu, why do we get the objection? Sorry, I'm not interested.
Yeah, good point, Rich, and obviously love that jingle as much as always. I guess if I'm totally honest, the better I do a job of opening a cold call, leading with problems, than the fewer times I get an objection like this. I think there's two reasons why we get this objection predominantly. The first one is that we haven't done a good job. We probably haven't articulated the problems that we solve, got the prospect interested, spoke about something that really resonates with them, spoke in their language, in their world, and something that gets them excited. And the second bit is similar to that, is we probably not just explained what we do very well. Whenever I get this objection and I listen back to the call, I think to myself, I've normally done a really bad job and I haven't really explained what we do or how we do it. I think to myself, no wonder the prospect isn't interested, because he hasn't got a clue what we do. And that is the truth of it normally. And we've seen this with some of the value propositions when we talked through them last week. How many times do we listen to value propositions from other suppliers and just think, I've no idea what they do? And it's the go-to reaction. We mentioned pattern interrupts and the easy response. I'm not interested in the easy response, that we need to break that pattern so people don't just go to the generic, I'm not interested response.
Mark?
Yeah, I think Stu's right. I think, look, sometimes people just aren't interested, of course. But for me, when I hear I'm not interested, putting myself in the shoe of the person I've just cold called, they are busy. They've had a cold call. I'm in their ear, and I think when someone says they're not interested, I think one, I've either not articulated what we do correctly, or they've misunderstood, or perhaps I've just sounded like something that they're already doing. And the reality is, as I say it all the time, most people will be just fine if they don't buy from you. And that's the bottom line. You've got to break that. I'll be just fine if I don't buy from you. You've got to break that mold. So people just say, I'm not interested. I already do this. I'm not interested. We've got that covered. Or there's just that misunderstanding. I think that's the biggest reason that we get that, particularly when you call an ICP. You just haven't articulated your value prop. You haven't broken that cycle, and that front of mind, not interested, just been thrown back at you. And the reality is, what are the odds are they going to be interested at that exact moment in time? You just interrupted them. Maybe they are interested, but they're really busy.
Comes back to this key thing about, I think I'm not interested come a lot from product pitches, because product pitches don't talk about how they can help prospects. Product pitches can often confuse prospects. Product pitches can often lead prospects to thinking that they've actually got a product that does what your product does or your service does. That's why leading with the problems and getting the person to open about their problems is a good way to not even get that objection in the first place. But Mark, I know that you've got a couple of examples that you're going to play, and I think these are maybe a bit different, because I think these are examples of maybe where we haven't done a great job of handling this objection. So I think what we want to do is you're going to play these objections, Mark, and I think what we want people to do in the chat function is, as we're playing these two examples of salespeople trying to handle these objections, is I want people to tell us in the chat, what are you observing here? What do you think the person is doing well or not so well? So as we play them, I want everyone to put in the chat what they are observing and their thoughts around how the salesperson is handling this.
Yeah. So here's recording number 1. We get hit with "I'm not interested."
Okay.
No, not of interest, I'm afraid.
Okay. Is there a reason for that at all?
No, we don't. I don't think we're interested.
Okay.
Thanks for the call, though.
Coaching's not on the agenda now.
No.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
There's the first one. Should I jump into the second one, or do we want to break that down first?
Tell you what, let's. Sounds defeated. Absolutely, yeah. You can hear the despair in the voice. Didn't follow with an open-ended question. Is there a reason for that? Is that Wendy? You saying is there a reason for that not being the best question to ask? Find out if there's a better time when you might be interested.
I think changing for what is the reason rather than is there a reason is yes, no, but what is the reason's more open.
I tell you what, Mark, keep on playing the next example, and then let's keep these coming through, guys, on the chat.
Yeah. So this is a classic one of they've misunderstood what we do as a business. They think we're an outbound telesales agency when clearly we're not.
In our business at the moment anyway, so I don't want to waste your time by saying yes when it's not really something that I'm interested in just now.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for clarifying. And just to reference, we aren't actually an outsourced training company. We provide the technology that allows the in-house coaching and training just to be maximised. But it'd be great to connect. I'm happy to send you a connection on LinkedIn. It'd be great.
And that's what we do. We go on just to agree we're going to connect on LinkedIn, even though we've all agreed there's a misunderstanding here. We just correct them, then connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think really it's such a hard one. I think when we get that, it's such a hard one to come back with. That's the reality. I think the key takeaways here on I'm not interested is actually it's one of those objections that the best thing to do is try and not get hit with that in the first place. I
think that asking a question, though, I think Connor's done the right thing trying to question that, but not necessarily the right question. I would agree with a lot of the comments. And I think the second call, what Nia's done is try to reframe that the customer's got the wrong end of the stick, and that's not what we are. But I think there's a better way of doing that. What I've tried to do in the past and what works quite well is just be really, self-detrimental and just say, look, I'm really sorry. I've done a crap job here of explaining what we do. We're nothing like that at all. What we do. And then you've almost got a second chance to mention those problems. Start again, mention it a different way, do something different, but you can reframe the conversation again. But just by stopping it, just saying, look, sorry, this is my fault. I've done a really bad job of explaining what we do. Can I have another go? And, 99.9% people will say yes. And then you just go in and try and lead with the problems again. Actually, what we do is this and this. Is that something that you're into or something that resonates with you?
Ian Bryan's put in there, I feel really bad now. Can I try again? It's a really nice approach. It's kind of you're almost kind of trying to get a little bit of sympathy, really, from the prospect. It sounds very human, and I think it's amazing how people would react to that if you say, listen, I haven't done a good job yet. Can you give me another chance? Okay, some people are still going to hang up on you, but you're going to get some people who are going to give you another shot.
100%.
Right, okay. So now that we've finished with
Objection of the week,
we're going to move on to the next part of the webinar, which is kind of changing things up a lot, moving away from cold calls. We're going to come on to optimizing LinkedIn. And specifically what we're going to be talking about here is how we can optimize our LinkedIn profiles to help us better talk to our ideal customer, to our buyers, and things that we can do to really optimize our LinkedIn profiles to basically have things that actually help us sell. But before we do that, Mark, what is the big problem with a lot of LinkedIn profiles that you see today from salespeople?
Yeah, people just don't really understand what LinkedIn's about. I think most people think LinkedIn is a CV. LinkedIn's a chance for you to talk about how amazing you are, what achievements you've had. And when I look at a lot of LinkedIn profiles, they make my toes curl a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but when I get someone try to sell to me, the first thing I do is I see, well, have they looked at my LinkedIn profile? Have they done the research? Or even just I want to look at their LinkedIn profile. And the last thing that I want to see as a potential buyer is that there's a bragging sales rep. We know what that sounds like. I hit quota, I smash quota, I generated this much revenue last month, I'm a deal machine, all these sort of cringy words. Yeah, VP of hustling, etc. Like, I've got some LinkedIn profiles that we've carefully picked, we've anonymized them, but we'll have a little look at them. But ultimately, LinkedIn profiles are your chance to have an advert, for you to speak to your prospect. This might be the only communication you ever get to have with them before they go online and book a demo. And people need to start optimizing their profiles. More and more people want to follow and look at people's profiles more than they do your company's profiles. Let's look at some of the profiles that I've picked out here. Okay, so first one here, as I say, it's all a bit of light-hearted fun, but these are profiles we've picked that I think are particularly not great. So let's imagine this is someone that's landed on my LinkedIn profile. They're trying to sell to me. I've gone on their profile. The first thing I read about this person is, first of all, it's in the third person, which I don't know about you. Apologies if this offends anyone that's on the panel. But when you write your profiles in third person, I think it's absolute cringe. Like, I don't get it. Who talks like that? So like it's absolute worse. It's absolute melt behaviour. Growing up, this is hilarious. Chris was passionate about two things: coaching and numbers. Ever since he was 10 years old, all he wanted to do was help businesses succeed. What were you guys doing when you were 10?
I was trying to figure out how to defeat Bowser the Dragon, who definitely isn't a turtle on Mario. He is a turtle.
Yeah, Stu?
That was no kid's dream.
No.
How businesses succeed. Maybe it's yours. And now he's being coached out the cold call. Other than that, I don't think so.
The other thing here, right? Look, what does he do? Like, I'm trying to figure out what this profile is. What do they do? It's really hard. So look, this is just a really boring, cringy third person. It's not a helpful profile. We move on to the next one. So this is a different profile. I appreciate you might not have seen that transition. This is a different profile. First thing that jumps out to me, I don't know about everyone else. What's the first thing you see on this profile? I see $400, $2 million, $30,000, $300,000, $9 million. Like, these numbers just jump out at me, and I just think, I don't really just want to be another notch here. Like, it stinks of a CV. And then I look at specialities, sales. It's like a chef. What's your speciality? Cooking. It's just really bizarre. For me, again, this is a CV. Guys, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm coming on to like key personal traits, like willingness to do more, keen observation, competitive. I'm just thinking, like, why do his buyers care that he's competitive, and also that he's got strong ethics? I mean, it's a good job he does. Otherwise, I'd be concerned about meeting this guy.
Do you know these are, Rich? These are answers to interview questions, like really cheesy ones. Do you know when you say to a sales professional in an interview, what's one of your biggest weaknesses? They go, I try too hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, willingness to do more. Yeah, all right, mate, jog on. Like, it's just boring, isn't it?
I think what we're coming up here is like literally too many people are creating LinkedIn profiles to be their CV, and not even good CVs. And as Mark said at the start, your LinkedIn profile is the most, probably the one of the biggest free adverts that you've got for your company, with the most eyeballs on it then that you have, for people to find out, how does this person help people like me? And I'd imagine if you've set a meeting with someone, or you've clicked on someone's profile, they're gonna check your profile back. So why not optimize your profile to actually tell that person how you help them? And I'm going to show a good example of this. And unfortunately, it pains me to say it, but someone who does this really well is someone on this webinar. Now, there are some things that are wrong with this profile that we'll come back to, but I'm going to share Mark's profile and just see one of the things that he's got on his about profile. So I read this, and it almost reads like a cold email. So you think of the cold emails that we've gone through over the past couple of weeks, it almost reads a bit like that. Do you work with inside sales reps, helping them have better, more successful cold calls? With remote working the new norm, are you struggling to review calls and demos and ensure reps are maximizing opportunity? This is highly relevant as well to recent conditions that we find ourselves. Sales leader, scroll down. You're kind of being intrigued as the person who fits Mark's ideal customer profile to find out more about how he helps people. And nothing on here is about the awards he's won, how he crushes quota, how he did a big deal with Johnson & Johnson 2 years ago. This is everything on here is telling this prospect how he helps, but leading with problems. Do you lack visibility? Why some of your team's conversations are successful? It's almost like taking the cold call framework and he's applied it to his profile here. And if we go down, interestingly, one of the things on here is that he's actually taken a lot of the context out of his previous jobs that he's been in. Mark, why have you done that?
Yeah, so look, it's not a CV. I don't need my ideal customer profiles that I'm now trying to engage with to read about what I did at the test factory, to read about what I did at Elam. It's not an advert for anyone else other than Refract and what I'm trying to achieve and who I'm trying to help. So the only information you'll see here is my current role. And again, this is me talking to my ideal customers.
There's a theme here, though, with anything we're talking about, and what we try to do is just not making it about yourself. Mark's profile isn't about him. Like you say, it's not about his achievements or his CV. It's about the person who's going to land on his profile, so they can see if it's for them. So he's trying to appeal to them. They're almost qualifying themselves in. Are you a sales leader? Do you struggle to do this? Do you struggle to do that? He's mentioning the problems, and as somebody who lands on here is thinking, well, actually, yes, that speaks to me. I know they don't. So he's qualifying them in or out on his actual profile.
So, but go on then, boys. Like, how could this profile be improved then?
The picture, to start.
Way, mic drop.
I took the words out of my mouth, to be fair. The one thing I actually like that Mark doesn't have on his profile here, but a guy called Josh Braun, who a bit of a fanboy of, what he does really well. He's a sales coach. On his headline, he's kind of asking those pain questions, those problem questions. Do you struggle to book meetings? Are you getting ghosted? Want to sell without selling your soul? Read this profile. It's like the ultimate kind of sneak preview, the tease, if you like. And he just gets prospects to scroll down and read more about how he helps salespeople with those problems. I'm not a big fan of all these emojis and emoticons. I think it's just they're distractions, but I really like that approach. Okay, right, we're going to move on to posting content. Loads of people on LinkedIn posting content these days. Feels like everyone's doing it, but I think there's some kind of statistic that someone might be able to correct me with. Like 5% of the entire population of LinkedIn are actively posting or sharing content. So it's such a small number of people who are actually doing it. But the key here is posting content to help us sell, to help create conversations. That's what this sort of webinar is about. But from someone who used to hate doing this, who was a hater but is now a lover, Mr. Stuart Taylor, tell us why you hated posting content this time last year.
Number of reasons, really. I guess one, because you kept going on about it like every day and telling me to post content, and I was like, it's all right, Rich, I've got it. But the other thing really is I wasn't really confident in my own voice, and I used to procrastinate a lot. I'd write a post, I'd delete it, I'd edit it, I'd start again, and before I'd know it, I'd spend half an hour, and then in the end I'd delete it and not do anything. And it really got me. I was kind of an irrational fear of posting content, which was stupid, and I totally see that now.
Just on that point, Stu, anybody who's kind of what Stu's saying is resonating with them, they were anxious to post content, they thought it was cringeworthy, they thought their company might tell them off. Share your experiences and thoughts and opinions in the chat. Go on, Stu.
Yeah, so the reason that I decided I needed to do something about it was, yes, Rich twisting my arm and telling us how great it was, but he was also getting results on the back of it. To be fair to Rich, he was probably the first in our company to get really prolific at doing it, and he got results. He got loads of traction. People were interacting with him, but better than that, they were booking meetings, they were booking demos, and he was getting business on the back of it. And I was kind of felt like I was missing the boat, and obviously wanted a piece of that action. So what I did to try and get over, and this is a tip anybody can try, it's not me, I didn't invent this, but is 1 month last year, I decided to myself, and I made myself commit to this. I put a time in my calendar, and every day I created a post on LinkedIn about anything and everything. And I made sure I'd done that for every working day in that month. And then once I'd got over that initial hurdle of doing it, it was easy. And now I'm just not bothered. I just post content whenever I feel like it. The other challenge I always had, which I think we can share some examples here, was I never knew what to say. I often used to spend so long thinking about trying to write the perfect post, trying to make sure that it appealed to everybody and what I can write. And I spent ages doing it. And I started to write about things. Again, Rich was really helpful in this and giving me some inspiration. One thing that I do now is share tips like we're doing here and now, things that have worked in my actual conversations with customers. Stop asking why questions. I read a great book where it recommended you stop asking why questions and ask what instead. A few little tips that I'd got from gatekeepers and how I started getting past some gatekeepers on conversations. Also real life experiences. One of our SDRs had a conversation with a sales trainer who was frankly disgusting in the way that he spoke to our SDR, and it just really pissed me off. It was like disrespectful and just not a good representation of our profession. I wrote about it, it got loads of traction, 36,000 views. But also be honest, like, we're not perfect. Nobody wants to hear how great you are and how, you're in President's Club and you're a quota-crushing salesperson. Be vulnerable, put your mistakes. I screwed up. I got a great meeting with a prospect, really excited about it. Schoolboy error, I never sent them the calendar invite. And then the next day I remembered, give them a ring. And I give them a ring, got the meeting back on, sent the calendar invite, and posted about that on LinkedIn. Again, nearly 10,000 views, so it starts to get traction. I guess the truth is, it doesn't have to be anything brilliant. Just share some real life examples and be human, be yourself.
And Stu, Alexa in the chat says, sometimes I feel like I don't know enough to post, or I'm worried about not getting a response. And I think that speaks to your point. One is post your content in your own voice and don't be worried about getting any responses or likes. It doesn't, you're there to share information, and eventually, and it does take time to grow an audience, eventually that will come. But if that's the outcome from the start, then you're only going to write content that you're trying to get traction with. And that's not necessarily the right approach, is it?
Definitely not. And often it's the opposite. The posts where you don't think you'll get traction are the ones that do. I can never predict how successful a post is going to be, so I've stopped trying. I just write what I genuinely feel. But it's a good point, Alexa. We haven't all got the right ideas, but what it might do is form a conversation with somebody who has a different idea, and you might learn something from that. They might have a better suggestion, and you might.
My best performing posts are provocative ones that I know everyone's not going to agree with. I don't care that not everyone's going to like what I've got to say, as long as I'm not being offensive. But those provocative posts are the ones that get people that open up dialogue. If I just said vanilla stuff that everybody agreed with, it would be boring. Right, Mark, we're going to quickly move on to some of your posts and some of the inspiration that you get from your posts.
Yeah, so look, I very much like what Stu says. Be human. Share what matters to you. Share what you think your prospects and ideal customers are going to care about. And I'll do this at a really high level, but I write about a variety of topics. I write about, in this example here, a personal journey that I've been on. This was my first ever job, was at Sunderland Football Club. It was run by the chairman, Niall Quinn. I wrote a story about how I met him a few years later and the learnings that I had. It was a good post. Next one. I wrote a story about 2 Sky sales reps. I walked past a booth. One Sky sales rep just didn't engage with me and really didn't generate any excitement. I walked back the other way, and the other one grabbed my attention. I wrote about it. Nearly 8,000 views. I subtly show off Refract. I tell real stories about how we've helped customers and back that up with data. Again, you can see they've gone down really well. We practice what we preach at Refract. We coach the team every week. I write about it. I post about it. I have opinions and ask others. So in the post on the left, I read a book. I quoted the author. I asked people what they thought. Got nearly 10,000 views. On the right, I actually, like Stu said, it was a bit provocative. It was a real story of where a cold called a CEO. Didn't really like how I was spoken to. 65,000 views or more, again, where people are getting involved in that because it resonates. It's real stories. And then quickly just flying through, I've tried different things. The webinar tomorrow with our CEO's son, I taught him to cold call once. We filmed it. This had over 250,000 views. It went viral. I mean, if anyone saw that video, fire away in the comments. Moving on. Just an example of some of the laughs you'll have if you follow me on LinkedIn. I post relevant memes sometimes, just again, a little bit of comedy that I like to sprinkle in there. I write about what I care about. So I wrote about a great sales experience at Mamas and Papas. This got circulated to the C-level suite of Mamas and Papas, and they emailed me. The person I wrote about got a pay rise and a day off work and acknowledged. I wrote about Jerry Tribbiani being a great salesperson. I wrote about a mistake that I made in one of my demos. And then finally, I love where I work, and I've got some great stories of where just being at Refract is a great place to work. Our boss said if England won the World Cup, we could have the day off. I wrote about it. I've had to work at home with my son. My boss is letting me do that under the cloud of COVID-19. I wrote about it. A real variety of topics there.
Billy's asked the question: Have these turned into sales? And I think this leads me nicely into my section. I think there's different ways of thinking about posting content. If me, Mark, and Stu hadn't posted valuable content over the past 12 months, it has helped grow our following on LinkedIn to the extent that we can get hundreds of people onto a webinar like this right now. And that's just one of the offshoot benefits of posting content. But I agree, there has to be a purpose to doing this. And I think a lot of the questions that people ask themselves is, how do I create content and how do I convert them into conversations and meetings? And I've actually got a real example of where I did this. This is kind of an atypical example of how I use my LinkedIn network and content that I post to create sales opportunities. So this is a post that I did a few months ago now, and the headline: provocative, most salespeople are terrible at delivering sales demos. Right? Quite provocative title. And I basically talk about how I used to be one of those salespeople, how I used to cringe when I thought about the demos I used to do in the past. I talked about the mistakes that people make, and I'm basically writing a post that is provocative, that's making my target audience, sales leaders, to think about, does this sound familiar in my world? I haven't talked about Refract, by the way, in this post. I'm just talking about a topic that I know speaks to the problems of the people that I sell to. You can see there, I got an all right amount of traction, 96 likes, 32 comments. This is what happened next. About half an hour later, I get a message from this guy who's a VP of sales. This is a LinkedIn message. I appreciate the content you generate. Very helpful. That's all. He hadn't said, "Ooh, tell me about Refract." He just said, "I appreciate the content you generate." What I need to do then is turn this into a conversation. I have to get this person in a habit of responding and typing back to me. That's the key here. If I go with a sales pitch too early, this guy's going to back off. So I say, much appreciated. Which piece of content particularly resonated with you? Because I post quite a bit of content, I want him to specify what specific content he really liked. Most salespeople are terrible at delivering sales demos. Agree. At this point, I know something I've said has resonated with him. More to the point, he fits in on the face of it into my ideal customer profile. I don't pitch Refract. I say, glad it resonated. What's your experiences here? This guy then goes to tell me about, his history in sales, of how he used to be, didn't like his previous approach. And now he really believes that sales is a blend of art and science. And again, right now I could think, should I pitch this guy Refract? No. So it seems like we share a lot of the same perspectives. I get on his level. Are you trying to get your sales team to embrace the same stuff that's working for you now? And right now I've got this guy actively talking in a habit of typing back, and he's now talking about, actually got a bit of a different challenge now. I've got a team who are, order takers, that their close ratios have plummeted. It's why they've brought me on board. So all of a sudden, I've gone from this guy saying, liked your content, to getting this guy to actually open up. And yet still, this guy, I have not talked about Refract yet. So I say, maybe we should talk, John. Again, that low kind of commitment sort of suggestion. I position how we help people with his problems. Worth a chat at the very least. I may be able to provide some valuable advice. Sure, I'm open to it. And lo and behold, we share times and dates, and we book a meeting. So I think this is just an atypical example. This is one of a number I could have shared, but this is a good example. If you post content that speaks to the problems that your buyers have, you can just take that engagement and turn it to conversations, but it's very key in how you do it. You can't pitch too early. You just got to get them involved in a conversation, get them explaining and talking, and that's the key to success. It's almost like a cold call in many respects. So just finally, for those of you who are sat there thinking, okay, that sounds great, but what can I write about? My best ideas for content come from my calendar. What I mean by that, it's the cold call I had yesterday that didn't go very well. It's the demo I had that I sat through being sold to last week. It's the coaching session that I did with my salesperson. It comes from my own experiences, and that's the easiest thing you can all do, is think about the experiences that you're having in your job with the people that you sell to, and you will be able to create content off the back of it.
I think somebody mentioned earlier in the comments asking, if they're really junior at the start of their career, what do they post about? Post about things you learn, because there's other people who are at the same stage of their journey. Post about what you're learning as you go through your journey. It doesn't matter whether you've been in sales 20 years or 5 minutes. There's still things you're learning, and you can post about which is valuable content for you to share.
Ask for advice as well. Those posts go down really well.
Good point. Yeah.
Matt, we all run out of time, but I think it's crucial that you want to kind of come in and.
Did you want to wrap up the presentation, Rich, and then maybe if I jump on after you, then we can do it that way around.
Yeah. So just to summarise, we've got cold calling. Remember the objective of the cold call. Stop caring about the outcome. Those valuable questions after the close. LinkedIn, create profiles which speak to your buyer, not to not about yourself. Avoid making a LinkedIn profile a CV. Don't be boring. And create content around your own experiences. And then finally, just a bit of a different giveaway this week. But what we want to offer to you guys is a free 30-minute private coaching session. This can be with anybody on this webinar, or if you're a manager and want one of your reps, it could include us coaching a call that you've done, an email that you've written, an approach on LinkedIn, or even just a makeover of your elevator pitch. Hopefully, you've learned enough from us over the past few weeks to say that we're not experts, we're not the most brilliant people in sales, but we hopefully have got a lot to give. So if you're interested in taking up that offer, it's completely no obligation, free 30-minute private coaching session. It could even just involve us just coming on a Zoom call and just talking through some tactics one-on-one. Email Richard@Refract.ai if interested with the subject line "Coach Me," and we will do that. And if I was in a position that I could learn from people that I feel like I'm getting value from, I would take that offer. So this is a chance to take up that offer. Right, Matt, over to you. Yeah, I know that you have some great stuff you want to share, which takes a bit more of a deeper look about using LinkedIn, using social to find great fit prospects as a carry on to what you shared with us a couple of weeks ago, which went down like a storm.
Yeah, cheers, Rich. So on the first sales bootcamp that we did, I talked briefly about LinkedIn and how you can search LinkedIn in Google. And I want to just expand upon that, but I want to give a twist because I alluded to it on the webinar that you could also use that hack for LinkedIn. Now, I know, for Twitter. So I know people on the call, some of you didn't attend the first one. So I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to get into how you can use this for Twitter. So if I start off just sharing my screen, 1 second. So this is a Google search, and just to recap for people who weren't on the first call, Google indexes LinkedIn, and as a result of that, you're then able to search LinkedIn within Google. And the way that you would go about doing that is with this, what we would call a search operator, which is site:/uk.linkedin.com. That's going to search all of the UK pages of LinkedIn. Now, I do have a video on LinkedIn of me showing how to do this, so I'll drop that in the chat after this. But this is just the principle. The idea is that you can go on to Google and search the whole of LinkedIn if you type in the right phrase, and it's site:/uk.linkedin.com. Remove the UK, you get the whole of LinkedIn. But then if I want to look for a particular job title, I'm going to add in this phrase here, in title, and just highlight it so you guys can see that. In title, and then in quotation marks, the words or phrases that I want to appear. Now, this works particularly well if you have a job title that inherently indicates a really strong fit prospect. So for us at Refract, we want to work with senior sales leaders who are committed to their teams excelling at sales. And so a job title that, for example, includes the word sales excellence for us is indicative of a very high fit prospect. There aren't going to be many of them, but we want to get to them quickly. And sometimes with sales now, that can take a long time. Using this hack allows us to find those people instantly because it uses the power of Google search. Now, I'm not going to go into the rest of this because it is covered in a video that I've done and we are running up on time. But you want to also include other phrases like other search strings, which are removing any jobs. That's what the negative is for. Removing any things related to salary, removing any articles, removing any company pages. That will give you lots and lots of profiles now where the phrase, in this case, sales excellence, fits in. So does that all make sense? Drop me a note in the chat. Is that making sense? Does that sort of resonate? You kind of getting the principle so far? I'll share the details in the chat of the video that I did in a lot more detail, but let me just jump in. Excellent. That's good to see. So let's apply this to Twitter because it works in Twitter as well. And it's a super powerful way of finding people on social and gives you a route into a conversation. So same principle applies here. You type in site:/twitter.com. That then shows us that Google is indexing Twitter, but it's giving us lots of stuff. We need to whittle this down to a more usable list for prospecting. So if I paste this in here, I'm looking in quotation marks for the phrase VP sales. And again, like with LinkedIn, I have to remove some of the results because this is going to give me a lot of noise. I need to reduce the noise and focus just on the people. So if I go site:/twitter.com, in speech marks, VP sales, remove any status updates, remove any statuses pages, remove any hashtags, hit enter, and I now am presented with a list. Now, I can't do this geographically, unfortunately. I might be able to, but it would take some work. This then gives me over 6,000 results where VP of sales is mentioned somewhere on the page. And let's just scroll down. We've got here Twitter handles of individuals around the world who have got VP sales in their profile page. So let's try and find one at random and see. So this is Stephen. And Stephen is a VP of sales for UK and Northern Europe at Playmaker. So immediately I know that for us at Refract, VP of sales, excellent fit potentially for working with us. And now I can find out about everything they're into. So I can see all of the interests. I can see all of the things that resonate for them. Maybe, they may be into sport. That gives me a route in. So Rich, Stu, Mark, do you want to jump in with how you might use this in the real world? How might you use this data?
What I like about this, Matt, is that people often share stuff that's more kind of personal interests on Twitter, I find, versus what they'd share on LinkedIn. So if you can find VPs of sales and then go on their Twitter page and see stuff that interests them in their personal life, that's just absolutely gold personalization content.
Those bios on Twitter are perfect. If somebody's got something in there that, they support such and such a football team or they love red wine or whatever, that little bit of personalisation is often just enough to get your foot in the door and get them interested to read your email. I cannot encourage anybody enough who is responsible for prospecting to try this because it's such a really cool way of getting your leads, but also being a little bit different because you can get that personalisation really easily for your outreach, which makes a massive difference.
Just on the fly there, Stu, taking your idea. Now we can use these Boolean search operators or Boolean search strings. So we can add in words and phrases in addition to, it's not limited to one. There can be any number of these, and you can use and you can use or. So in the example that you said there, Stu, VP of sales and wine. Let's see if we can find VPs of sales who also love wine. This guy here is a VP of sales and marketing, and in his bio, loves great wine. Now, what a way to start to open up a conversation with this guy. If as a marketer, I'm thinking direct response. I'm thinking, is there an argument for sending this guy a nice bottle of wine potentially? If there's a good fit there, maybe. This is something that you can use very easily to generate lists of prospects and give you ideas, give you reasons to talk to them and open up a conversation. So let me know in the chat if this is useful. We are going to make the recording available, so I will share this with everybody. But yeah, for now, this is just a starting point. There are lots of other things you can do, so stay tuned for some more ideas.
I might call Christian. You've got 35 seconds to talk about good wine. I mean, is he going to hang up with me? Is he going to give me a not interested? Let's be honest.
Get line, what's your favorite bottle of wine, Chris? There's loads of things you can do with it.
There's so much goodness here. I mean, this is stuff that I'd never actually seen before until Matt kind of discovered this. But I know that we're at the top of the hour. I think there's still 150 people again. Where if people are keen for us to continue these, we do feel we've got more to talk about and share. So please let us know in the chat if you're hungry for more. And we'll keep on doing these every week. Just to wrap up, so again, we've got Kevin, our CEO's webinar tomorrow. That's Friday, 10 a.m. Where he's going to be involving his 11-year-old son Joe, who Mark references, the guy who made cold calls, and they're going to talk about careers in sales for kids, especially with so many of you having kids at home right now. I put the offer there of send me an email with the title Coach Me if you or a member of your team want to take the opportunity of having a coaching session with me, Mark, or Stu. Please post on LinkedIn if you've enjoyed today again. We love the engagement there. We'll comment on the stuff that you put on there. And everyone hang in there with the isolation.
Suggestions for anything you want to see, anything for us to discuss next time. We'll try and help in any way we can. So
Yeah, what objections does everyone want to see next week? What content would be helpful for them? Connect with us on LinkedIn. We love getting your messages about what you're trying and what works as well. And the final thing for me, lads, the screen capture time. Say cheese. 3, 2, 1. Hey. There we go. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. But do just fire away of anything you'd like to see on the next webinars and connect with us on LinkedIn and give us a shout out as well.